You owe me for being born, Sydney. That's why you're doing this." My mother, Joanna, said it with such casual certainty, like she was reminding me to pick up milk, not demanding I bankroll her extravagant 60th birthday party. I was 38 years old, a single mum, and a teacher barely making ends meet. And yet there she was, laying claim to my entire existence over the phone. I gripped my mug so hard, I thought the ceramic would crack. This wasn't new. This was the soundtrack to my life. Every breath I took, every achievement, every struggle, it all came back to how much I supposedly owed her. It was a debt she meticulously tallied, a ledger only she could see, and the interest compounded daily. I remember one specific entry in that invisible ledger, etched into my memory like a brand. Leela, my daughter, was just a few weeks old, still tiny and fragile, a miracle I'd fought tooth and nail for. It was a sweltering July afternoon, a family barbecue at my aunt's house. Everyone was there, cousins, aunts, uncles, even some of Joanna's neighbourhood friends. I was 30, exhausted, still navigating the bewildering landscape of new motherhood, my body a foreign country after childbirth. I wore a loose sundress, trying to hide the lingering softness around my middle, feeling self-conscious but desperate to be present. Joanna, then 52, was holding court by the grill, her laugh echoing a little too loudly. She caught my eye, then gestured vaguely at me with her wine glass. "Look at Sydney," she announced, her voice carrying over the chatter. "She's still got that post-baby glow, doesn't she? More like a post-baby bloat, if you ask me." A few nervous titters rippled through the crowd. My cousin, Shanice, who was 28 at the time, gave me a sympathetic glance, but no one said anything. Joanna, emboldened, continued, "Honestly, I bounced back so much faster after I had her. Some women just don't have the discipline, do they? It's a shame, really. All that hard work to get pregnant, and then you just let yourself go." She punctuated it with a dismissive wave of her hand, then turned back to her friends, who were now awkwardly pretending to be fascinated by the charcoal briquettes. My cheeks burned. I felt every eye on me, every whisper, every unspoken judgment. My sundress suddenly felt like a spotlight, highlighting every curve I wished wasn't there. I mumbled an excuse about needing to check on Layla and retreated inside, tears blurring my vision. I locked myself in the bathroom, staring at my reflection, seeing only what Joanna had pointed out: the soft belly, the tired eyes, the faint stretch marks. That day, the joy of being a new mother was overshadowed by the familiar, crushing weight of her disapproval. It was a pattern, a constant chipping away at my self-worth, always public, always humiliating. Back in the present, the phone was still warm against my ear. "Sydney? Are you listening?" Joanna's voice was sharp, cutting through my thoughts. "Yes, Mother, I'm listening," I said, my voice flat. "Good, because this party is important. My 60th. It needs to be spectacular. The kind of event people talk about for years. I'm thinking a full ballroom, a live band, top-tier catering, and of course, fireworks. Nothing less will do." She paused, expecting agreement. "And you're handling it?" "All of it. The planning, the deposits, the final payments. Consider it your repayment for all those years I sacrificed for you. You owe me." She didn't ask. She stated. She never asked. It was always a demand, cloaked in the language of obligation and guilt. For years I had jumped, I had paid, I had performed. I had tried to earn the love she withheld, to make up for the imaginary debt she insisted I carried. I had tried to be the perfect daughter, the one who never caused trouble, the one who always showed up, the one who always paid. But something had shifted inside me. Maybe it was watching Lila, so full of unbridled joy, so unburdened by the kind of emotional baggage I carried. Maybe it was the sheer audacity of Joanna's demand, the casual cruelty of it. A cold, hard knot formed in my stomach, but it wasn't fear or sadness. It was something new, something sharp. I spent the rest of the afternoon on my laptop, opening emails, clicking links. I pulled up the catering invoice Joanna had just forwarded, a staggering 5-figure sum for a gourmet buffet and open bar. My finger hovered over the delete button. A bitter smile touched my lips. She wanted a party, I muttered to the empty room. She'll get a party, all right. I clicked delete. The mistake she never fixed. That's what Joanna used to call me. Not to my face, not usually, but loud enough for me to hear from behind closed doors. I was a child, maybe 7 or 8 years old, hiding behind the living room door, listening to her complain to a friend on the phone. She's just so difficult, always has been. A mistake, really. The one I never fixed. The words burrowed deep, forming the bedrock of my self-worth. Every time I stumbled, every time I failed, every time I just existed. In a way that displeased her, that phrase echoed. It was a constant reminder that I was inherently flawed, a project she'd given up on. It explained why her love felt conditional, why I always had to earn it, why I always fell short. My phone buzzed, pulling me from the memory. It was Meredith, my younger sister. Meredith, 35, had always been the peacemaker, the one who tried to smooth things over, usually by caving to Joanna's demands. She was 3 years younger than me, but sometimes she acted like the older one, always trying to protect me from Joanna's wrath, even if it meant sacrificing herself. "Hey," she said, her voice a little too bright, a little too strained. "Mum just called. She's ecstatic about the party. Says you're really taking charge." "Oh, am I?" I replied, trying to keep my voice neutral. I was sitting at my kitchen table, a half-eaten bowl of cereal in front of me. Lila was still asleep. "Yeah, she was going on about the venue and the caterer. Said you'd already confirmed everything." Meredith paused. "Look, Sydney, I know she's a lot, but it's her 60th. Can't we just get through this? Don't rock the boat." Don't rock the boat. That was Meredith's mantra, her survival strategy. It was a strategy born from years of watching Joanna's unpredictable storms. I understood it, intellectually, but emotionally I was done. I remembered another boat-rocking incident, one that still made my stomach clench. I was 31, and I'd just had a miscarriage. It was early, only 10 weeks, but it had shattered me. I'd been so careful, so hopeful. Joanna, then 53, had come over, ostensibly to comfort me. "You know," she'd said, sitting stiffly on my couch, not even offering a hug, "this is probably for the best. You're not exactly stable, are you? A teacher's salary, a tiny apartment. How are you going to manage? Honestly, it's a blessing in disguise. A child needs a proper foundation, not this." She gestured around my small but perfectly adequate living room. "And besides, you're so emotional. You'd probably just pass on all your anxieties to it. Some women just aren't cut out for motherhood." The words had landed like physical blows. My grief, already a gaping wound, had been ripped wider by her casual cruelty, her ability to twist my pain into another indictment of my worth. It wasn't comfort. It was a weapon. She had weaponized my miscarriage, using my deepest vulnerability to reinforce her narrative of my inadequacy. It was a pattern she'd perfected over decades. "Sydney, are you still there?" Meredith's voice brought me back. "Yeah, I'm here," I said, shaking my head slightly to clear the lingering bitterness of the memory. "Just thinking. Well, just keep thinking about how much easier it'll be if you just go along with it," Meredith urged. "She's already telling everyone how amazing it's going to be. Mrs. Henderson from next door called her this morning, apparently, just to gush about how lucky Joanna is to have such a devoted daughter planning such a grand affair." I could picture it. Joanna, preening, basking in the glow of her neighbour's admiration. She lived for appearances, for the carefully curated image of the perfect mother, the perfect hostess. The party wasn't for her, not really. It was for them, for the audience she so desperately craved. Later that week, I saw it firsthand. I stopped by Joanna's house to drop off some mail that had been misdelivered to my old address. Her front door was open, and I could hear her voice, loud and theatrical, coming from the living room. "Oh yes, Sydney is just insisting on handling everything. she was saying to a group of her bridge club friends, their perfectly coiffed heads nodding in unison. She's so determined to make my 60th truly unforgettable. She already has the ballroom booked, and the catering is going to be divine. And the fireworks. She's even arranged for a spectacular fireworks display. My little girl, always so thoughtful. I walked in, plastering a smile on my face. "Hi, Mum." "Ladies," Joanna beamed, a performance for her audience. "Sydney, just the woman I was talking about. Come, tell Mrs. Davies about the menu you've chosen. She's dying to hear." I played along, nodding, making vague, positive noises about the exciting plans and the wonderful surprises for the party. My stomach churned, but my face remained serene. They had no idea. They saw the dutiful daughter, the one who was making her mother's dreams come true. They saw the facade. I left after 20 minutes, my smile aching. The car ride home was quiet, except for the low hum of the engine and the frantic beating of my own heart. I pulled into my driveway, exhausted by the charade. As I unlocked my front door, my phone buzzed with a new text message. It was from Joanna. "Don't forget to confirm the fireworks show. This night needs to be perfect." The fireworks text from Joanna felt like a gauntlet thrown down. Perfect. She wanted perfect. I leaned back against my kitchen counter, the phone still in my hand, and a slow, deliberate calm settled over me. Perfect she would get, just not the kind she expected. Over the next 2 weeks, I systematically dismantled the perfect party. It was a careful, almost surgical process. First, the catering. I called the company, explained that due to unforeseen circumstances, we'd have to cancel the booking. They were professional, if a little disappointed about the lost revenue. I made sure to confirm that the deposit, which Joanna had insisted I pay, was non-refundable. That was part of the plan. She wouldn't get that money back, not from them. Next, the DJ. A quick email, a polite cancellation. Then the florist, the photographer, the custom cake baker. Each call, each email was a small victory, a tiny thread snipped from the elaborate tapestry Joanna was weaving in her mind. I kept a spreadsheet, meticulously tracking each cancellation, each non-refundable deposit. The money, a significant chunk of my savings, was gone, but it wasn't gone for nothing. While I was meticulously unraveling Joanna's grand design, I was also weaving a new one, a secret one. This one was for Lila. My daughter Lila was 8 years old, a bright, joyful spark who deserved every ounce of happiness I could give her. She loved roller coasters. The faster and twistier, the better. She'd been begging to go to the new adventure park upstate for months, but it was expensive, a luxury I usually couldn't justify. Now, it was the only thing that mattered. I booked a 2-night stay at a hotel near the park, just a few hours' drive from our house. I bought tickets for both of us for 2 full days. I even found a small local place that made custom t-shirts, and I ordered 2 matching ones. Adventure Awaits for me and Coaster Queen for Lila. The thought of her face lighting up, the pure, unadulterated joy, was the fuel that kept me going through the deceptive calls and Joanna's increasingly demanding texts. My best friend, Caitlin Martinez, was my co-conspirator and my conscience. Caitlin, 39, was a year older than me, a no-nonsense woman with a heart of gold and a knack for cutting through my self-doubt. Her husband, Truman, 40, was quietly loyal and incredibly practical. I called Caitlin the day after I deleted the catering invoice. "You're doing what?" Caitlin's voice was a mix of shock and admiration. We were on speakerphone, and I could hear Truman in the background, probably making coffee. "I'm cancelling the party," I repeated, feeling a surge of defiant energy. "All of it. And I'm using the money for a surprise trip for Lila, an adventure park, the one she's been dreaming about." There was a beat of silence. Then Caitlin burst out laughing. "Sydney Horton, you magnificent bastard! I knew you had it in you." "It's going to be messy, Kate," I admitted, the adrenaline starting to wear off, replaced by a familiar knot of anxiety. Joanna's going to lose her mind. Oh, she absolutely will, Caitlin agreed, her tone serious now. And she'll try to make you pay for it, in every way she knows how. She'll turn the family against you. She'll try to make you feel like the worst person on earth. Are you ready for that? I think so, I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. I'm tired of being the punching bag. Lila deserves better than a mother who's constantly walking on eggshells. Damn right she does, Caitlin affirmed. Okay, so, what do you need? Logistics? Alibis? I'm in. Truman's good with maps and finding obscure routes if you need to avoid any unexpected visitors. Truman, true to form, helped me map out the best route to the adventure park, avoiding major highways that Joanna might know I'd take. He even looked up hotel reviews and suggested a few kid-friendly restaurants near the park. Caitlin, meanwhile, became my emotional anchor, reminding me of all the times Joanna had belittled me, all the times she'd made me feel small. She kept my resolve from wavering. As the day of the party drew closer, Joanna's excitement became almost unbearable. She called me daily, sometimes multiple times, to discuss trivial details, the exact shade of the tablecloths, the font on the personalized napkins, the playlist for the DJ. I humoured her, offering vague affirmations, pretending to confirm things I'd already cancelled. Then, a week before the supposed party, Joanna outdid herself. She shared a link on her social media, tagging me in the post. It was a small article from the local community paper, buried on page 3, but Joanna had clearly orchestrated it. The headline read, "Local matriarch Joanna Horton to host exclusive 60th birthday bash." The article went on to describe the lavish affair, the esteemed guest list, and the spectacular fireworks display being planned by her devoted daughter, Sydney. I stared at the screen, a cold fury building in my chest. Her narcissism, writ large for the entire town to see. She wasn't just planning a party, she was crafting a public image, a monument to her own self-importance, and I was the unwitting architect. "Exclusive bash," I scoffed, tossing my phone onto the couch. "Oh, it'll be exclusive all right, just not in the way she thinks." The dress fitting was scheduled for 2 days before the party. Joanna had insisted on it, of course, wanting to make sure her devoted daughter looked presentable for the grand event. I dreaded it. It was another opportunity for her to pick me apart, to find fault, to remind me of my inherent inadequacy. I arrived at the boutique, a place Joanna frequented for her own lavish outfits. It reeked of expensive fabric and condescension. Joanna, 60, was already there, holding up a shimmering floor-length gown, her eyes narrowed critically. "Sydney, darling," she cooed, a saccharine tone that always preceded a barb. "This one, I think, it's forgiving, for your shape." I forced a smile. "It's lovely, Mother." She handed it to me, then turned to the sales associate. "My daughter here," she announced, loud enough for half the store to hear, "is planning my 60th birthday. A truly magnificent affair. She's been so busy, she hasn't had much time for herself, poor dear." She paused, then lowered her voice conspiratorially, though still loud enough to carry. "It's a shame, really. I was hoping Lila would inherit my good genes, but it seems she's taking after Sydney's side of the family. All that failure." The word hung in the air, a venomous whisper. Failure genes. Not just me, but my daughter too. My sweet, joyful Lila, who was only 8 years old, already being tainted by Joanna's poison. It was a casual joke, delivered with a dismissive wave of her hand, but it hit me with the force of a physical blow. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about Lila. Joanna was already trying to infect her, to plant the seeds of self-doubt and unworthiness that had plagued me my entire life. I felt a tremor run through me, a cold wave of nausea. I excused myself, mumbling something about needing to use the restroom. I stumbled into a small, empty dressing room, my hands shaking as I fumbled with the clasp of the dress. I didn't even try it on. I just stood there, leaning against the cool wall, trying to breathe. Failure genes. The echo of a much older memory surfaced, sharp and clear. I was maybe 6 or 7, a tiny thing, hiding behind the closed door of my parents' study. I'd heard Joanna's voice, hushed but angry, on the phone. "She's just a little parasite," she'd hissed. "Always taking, never giving, a drain on everything. I don't know what I did to deserve her." A parasite, a mistake, a failure. The labels she'd given me, the identity she'd tried to force upon me, had been a constant battle. But I was 38 now. I had my own daughter, a vibrant, innocent child who deserved to grow up knowing she was loved unconditionally, that she was a gift, not a burden. I took a deep, shuddering breath. The shaking subsided, replaced by a fierce, cold resolve. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about breaking a cycle. It was about protecting Lila from the same emotional abuse that had scarred me. Joanna could not do this to my daughter. I walked out of the dressing room, the untried dress still on its hanger. "Mother," I said, my voice steady, though my heart was pounding, "this dress isn't quite right." "I'll find something else." Joanna looked annoyed, but she shrugged. "Fine, just make sure it's suitable for May party." I nodded, a small knowing smile playing on my lips. "Oh, it will be. Perfectly suitable." The next day, the day before the party, I picked up a rented dress bag from a local costume shop. It was a standard black garment bag, the kind used for formal wear. Inside, it was empty. I drove to Joanna's house, pulled into her driveway, and walked up to her mailbox. It was a large, ornate thing, designed to impress. I carefully folded the empty dress bag and pushed it inside, making sure it was visible. The label on the outside, written in bold, elegant script, read, "For the Queen." I got back in my car, started the engine, and pulled away. The empty dress bag, a silent promise, sat waiting in Joanna's mailbox. The decision was final. There was no going back. The day of the party dawned bright and clear, a perfect backdrop for Joanna's grand humiliation. I imagined her waking up, a flutter of anticipation in her chest, already picturing the limos, the flashing cameras, the adoring faces of her guests. She'd probably spent hours getting ready, meticulously applying her makeup, choosing the perfect dress, not the one I'd rejected, but something equally ostentatious. She'd take dozens of selfies, her carefully curated smile plastered on her face, ready to post them for the world to see. But I wasn't there to witness it. Lila and I were hundreds of miles away, the sun streaming through the car windows as we drove north. Lila, 8, was practically vibrating with excitement in the passenger seat, clutching a worn-out map of the adventure park. "Mum, are we there yet? How much longer? Can we go on the cyclone first? Please, please, please." "Almost there, sweet pea," I said, my own heart lighter than it had been in years. "And yes, we can go on the cyclone first. If you're brave enough." "I'm the bravest," she declared, puffing out her chest. We arrived at the adventure park just as the gates opened. The air was filled with the happy screams of children, the distant rumble of roller coasters, and the sweet smell of popcorn. Lila's eyes were wide, her mouth agape. She grabbed my hand, pulling me towards the biggest, most intimidating roller coaster in the park, the Cyclone. "Come on, Mom!" "Let's go!" We stood in line, the anticipation building with every click and clack of the coaster cars above us. When it was our turn, Lila practically leapt into the seat. I strapped myself in beside her, a nervous flutter in my stomach that had nothing to do with Joanna. The ride lurched forward, slowly climbing the steep incline, the wind whipping through my hair. At the top, we paused for a terrifying moment, looking down at the miniature world below. Then, we plunged. Lila's shriek of pure, unadulterated joy was the most beautiful sound I had ever heard. Her arms were thrown wide, her face a mask of exhilaration, her ear-to-ear grin, visible even as we twisted and turned through the loops and drops. I laughed. A genuine, unrestrained laugh that felt foreign on my own lips. It was pure, simple, glorious fun. It was everything I had never had as a child. It was worth every penny, every lie, every potential fallout. Meanwhile, back home, the clock was ticking towards 7 p.m., the supposed start time of Joanna's exclusive bash. I pictured her, dressed to the nines, probably pacing her living room, waiting for the first limo to pull up, for the first guests to arrive. She'd be checking her phone, expecting a text from the venue manager, confirming everything was ready, but there would be no limos, no guests, no venue manager. Joanna, undoubtedly growing impatient, would eventually decide to head to the ballroom herself, perhaps with Chaz, her smug, opportunistic boyfriend, in tow. She'd arrive at the grand entrance, expecting to see lights blazing, music spilling out, a red carpet rolled out just for her. Instead, she would find silence, darkness, an empty parking lot, the ballroom cold and locked, a stark monument to her inflated ego. No lights, no music, no catering staff, no floral arrangements, no DJ. Just the echoing silence of her own expectations crashing down. I imagined her standing there, the realization slowly dawning, her perfectly made-up face contorting in confusion, then disbelief, then rage. The public humiliation she had so gleefully inflicted on me, time and time again, was now her own. My phone, which I had kept on silent for most of the day, finally started buzzing around 8 p.m. 23 missed calls, all from Joanna. I let them go to voicemail, picturing her frantic, furious face. She'd be spiraling, calling everyone she knew, trying to understand what had happened. I scrolled through my photos. There, in my camera roll, was a picture I'd snapped on the cyclone. Lila, mid-scream, her face alight with pure joy, her ear-to-ear grin a beacon of happiness. I cropped it tightly, focusing only on her radiant face, and posted it to my social media. No caption needed, just that smile. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed again. It wasn't Joanna this time. It was a text from my Aunt Tabitha, Joanna's older sister, who usually stayed out of family drama. The message was short, sharp, and dripping with anger. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Aunt Tabitha's text, "Do you have any idea what you've done?" landed like a grenade. I stared at it, then at Lila, who was happily munching on a churro, completely oblivious. A strange calm settled over me. Yes, Aunt Tabitha, I had a very clear idea. The fallout exploded almost immediately. My phone, which had been silent for so long, became a relentless buzzing machine. Calls, texts, angry voicemails. The family group chat, usually reserved for mundane updates and holiday greetings, became a war zone. Meredith, true to form, was the first to launch a full-scale assault. She called me, her voice a shrill mix of anger and panic. "Sydney, what in God's name did you do? Mum is absolutely hysterical. She's saying you sabotaged everything, that the venue was empty, that there were no guests, no food, nothing." "That's right," I said, my voice steady. I was sitting on the hotel room bed, watching Lila draw in her new Adventure Park colouring book. "Right? Sydney, this isn't funny. She's devastated. She's crying, she's screaming, she's threatening to disown you. Everyone is talking. Mrs. Henderson from next door called her, asking what happened to the fireworks. It's a complete disaster." "Joanna had her party, Meredith," I replied, keeping my tone even. "Just not the one she planned." "What does that even mean?" she shrieked. "It means you ruined her life. You humiliated her in front of everyone." "She humiliated me my entire life, Meredith," I said, the words coming out with a quiet force that surprised even me. "She mocked my body after I gave birth to Lila. She called me a mistake, a parasite, a failure. She weaponized my miscarriage. She just called Lila's genes failure genes 2 days ago. This isn't about a party, Meredith. This is about decades of emotional abuse." There was a stunned silence on the other end of the line. Then Meredith's voice dropped, losing some of its frantic edge. She said that about Lila?" "She did," I confirmed, in front of a room full of people at the dress shop. The conversation ended with Meredith muttering something about needing to call Mom back. The group chat, however, continued to rage. My cousin Shanice, who had been there during the postpartum humiliation, posted a vague message about karma and reaping what you sow, which was quickly followed by a flurry of angry emojis from Joanna's side of the family. My Aunt Tabitha, still furious, accused me of being cold and heartless. But then, something unexpected started to happen. Mixed in with the condemnation, a few private messages began to trickle in. They weren't from Joanna's inner circle, but from younger relatives, cousins I barely spoke to, nieces and nephews who were just starting to navigate their own adult lives. "I heard what happened," one text read. "My mum says you're crazy. But honestly, I wish I was that brave." Another, "My grandmother is furious, but I saw what she did to my aunt growing up. You deserved better." And then, a call from Caitlin. "So, the fireworks show was a bust, huh?" She chuckled, then her voice sobered. "Listen, I just got off the phone with my sister's friend who knows Chaz. Apparently, Joanna was telling him, and anyone who'd listen, that she was hoping this party planning would push you over the edge, that you'd have a public meltdown or just crack under the pressure. She wanted you to break down, Sydney. She thought it would prove you were unstable and she could get full control of Lila. She's been talking about how she's worried about your parenting for months." My blood ran cold. Control of Lila. That was it. That was always the ultimate goal. The party wasn't just about humiliation. It was a calculated move to push me to my breaking point, to validate her narrative of my instability, to give her leverage over my daughter. The thought made my stomach clench, but it also solidified my resolve. I had done the right thing. I had protected Lila. "She won't get her," I whispered, my voice fierce. "No, she won't," Caitlin agreed. "You're stronger than she ever gave you credit for. And honestly, a lot of people are seeing that now. She's alienated a lot of people over the years with her antics. This just brought it to a head." We spent another day at the adventure park, soaking up every moment of joy. Lila was exhausted, but beaming, already planning her next visit. We drove home late Sunday night, pulling into my driveway just as the moon was high in the sky. I was carrying Lila, who had fallen asleep in the car, when I saw the figure on my porch. Meredith. She was sitting on the top step, her shoulders shaking. She wasn't screaming, she wasn't angry, she was crying. I put Lila down gently on the couch, pulled a blanket over her, and walked back to the door. Meredith looked up, her face streaked with tears. "I think I get it now," she choked out. Meredith's words, "I think I get it now," hung in the cool night air. I sat down beside her on the porch swing, the wood creaking softly under our combined weight. She didn't look at me, just stared out into the darkness, tears still silently tracking paths down her cheeks. "Mum told me everything," she finally said, her voice raw. "About the party, about the cancellations. She's saying you embezzled the money, that you're a thief. She's already called a lawyer to have you removed from her will." I nodded. I figured as much. "She'll do whatever she can to hurt me." "She's also been posting on social media," Meredith continued, her voice trembling, "calling you ungrateful and cruel. She's turning everyone against you. Aunt Tabitha, Uncle Robert, all the cousins. They're all piling on." I closed my eyes, picturing the flurry of angry comments, the self-righteous indignation. It was Joanna's playbook, perfected over decades. Control the narrative, isolate the victim. "I know," I said, opening my eyes. "Caitlin warned me?" "But she also told me about what Mom said about Lila," Meredith whispered, finally turning to face me. Her eyes were red-rimmed, but there was a new light in them, a dawning realization. "About the failure genes, and about what she said after your miscarriage. I didn't know she was that bad, Sydney. Not really. I always just thought she was difficult, demanding. But this is different." "It's always been this bad, Meredith," I said softly. "You just learned to ignore it, or she learned to hide it from you better." Meredith buried her face in her hands, a choked sob escaping her. "God, Sydney, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I didn't see it. I'm so sorry I told you to not rock the boat. She's been doing this to you your whole life, hasn't she? and I just let it happen. It wasn't an apology I expected, or even one I thought I needed. But hearing it, seeing Meredith's genuine remorse, a tiny crack appeared in the wall I'd built around myself. "It's okay, Mir," I said, reaching out and putting a hand on her arm. "We all dealt with her in our own ways." The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was heavy with unspoken history, with shared trauma, with the dawning of a new understanding between us. The next day, the inevitable confrontation happened. I was at school, in my classroom, preparing for my afternoon lesson. It was a Tuesday, a regular school day. I heard a commotion in the hallway, then the sharp, unmistakable sound of Joanna's voice. "I need to see my daughter, Sydney Horton. She works here, doesn't she?" My heart hammered against my ribs. She wouldn't. She couldn't. But she had. She was here, at my workplace, making a scene. My principal, a kind but firm woman named Mrs. Davies, appeared at my door, her face tight with concern. "Sydney, your mother is here. She's very upset." I took a deep breath. This was it. The final act. "It's okay, Mrs. Davies. I'll handle it." I walked out into the hallway. Joanna, 60, was standing there, dressed impeccably, but her face was a mask of fury. Her eyes were blazing, her lips thin. Chaz, 42, stood a few paces behind her, looking uncomfortable. A few teachers and staff members had gathered, pretending to be busy, but clearly listening. "There you are," Joanna shrieked, her voice echoing in the quiet hallway. "You little viper! You think you can humiliate me and get away with it? You think you can steal my money and ruin my reputation? I'll see you destitute. I'll make sure you never work again. I'll make sure everyone knows what a truly awful, ungrateful daughter you are." I stood perfectly still, my arms crossed. I looked her in the eye, not flinching, not backing down. This was the woman who had spent my entire life trying to break me. But I wasn't that little girl anymore. "You have no idea what you've done, do you?" she hissed, stepping closer, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper. "You've destroyed everything. My friends, my reputation, my standing in the community, all because you're a selfish, miserable failure." "No, Mother," I said, my voice clear and steady, cutting through her rage. "I know exactly what I've done." Her eyes narrowed, searching for a crack in my composure, a flicker of the old fear. She found none. "You were never mine to control anyway," she spat, the words laced with a bitter, defeated acceptance. "Exactly," I replied, a quiet triumph blooming in my chest. I turned and walked away, back towards my classroom, leaving her standing there, fuming. She screamed something after me, a jumble of curses and threats. But I didn't turn back. I kept walking, one foot in front of the other, until I reached my classroom door. I closed it gently behind me, shutting out her rage, shutting out the noise. The silence that followed wasn't the absence of sound. It was peace. 3 months had passed since the day Joanna's party never happened, since the confrontation at my school. 3 months since the silence that had settled over me felt like peace instead of absence. Leela, now 8, was sprawled on her bedroom floor, surrounded by glitter and colourful paper. She was meticulously adding a new photo to a vibrant scrapbook. The cover, decorated with hand-drawn roller coasters and smiling suns, read, "The best day ever." Inside were pictures from our adventure park trip. Lila's ecstatic face on the cyclone, us laughing on the log flume, silly selfies with cotton candy mustaches. Each page was a testament to pure, unadulterated joy. She'd been working on it for weeks, reliving every moment. "Mum, remember how scared you were on the drop tower?" she giggled, holding up a picture of my wide-eyed, terrified face. "Hey!" "I was brave," I protested, ruffling her hair. "You were just braver." Watching her, so unburdened, so full of light, solidified everything. This was the legacy I was building, not one of debt or obligation, but of love and freedom. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. It was an unfamiliar number. I hesitated, then answered. "Sydney, it's Chaz, Joanna's former boyfriend. I hadn't heard from him since the school incident." "Chaz," I said, surprised. To what do I owe the pleasure? He chuckled, a dry, humourless sound. Pleasure? Not so much. Just thought you'd like to know. Joanna's not doing so great. Socially, I mean. Turns out karma's not just a word, is it? What happened, I asked, though I had a pretty good idea. Well, after the party fiasco, she tried to spin it as you having a nervous breakdown and sabotaging everything. But then Meredith started talking. Just little things at first, to a few cousins, then it spread. About how Joanna treated you, about the comments she made, about the miscarriage. And then, well, people started remembering other things. How she treated her own family, how she talked about her friends behind their backs. Her bridge club dropped her, her garden club. Even Mrs. Henderson from next door stopped taking her calls. She's pretty much a pariah in her own social circle. And me? I'm out. She's not exactly the cat she used to be, now that her social standing is in shambles, and she's spending all her time trying to sue you for embezzlement, which, by the way, her lawyer already told her, is a non-starter. He paused, then added, honestly, she was always more obsessed with her image than anything else, and you just shattered it. Good for you, Sydney. Good for you. He hung up before I could respond. I sat there for a moment, absorbing it. The truth, finally leaking out. Not from me, but from Meredith. From the ripple effect of Joanna's own actions. It was a strange kind of justice, quiet and insidious. Meredith and I had been talking more since that night on my porch. She started therapy, and slowly, tentatively, she was beginning to unpack her own experiences with Joanna. Our relationship was still fragile, built on years of Joanna's carefully constructed divides, but it was real. For the first time, it felt real. I walked into the backyard, where Lila was now chasing a butterfly, her laughter echoing in the afternoon sun. She stumbled, picked herself up, and kept running, completely unself-conscious. I watched her, a profound sense of peace settling over me. I hadn't fixed my mother. I didn't have to. I hadn't sought forgiveness, not really. I had sought liberation, and in doing so, I had raised someone better instead. Someone who knew her worth, who wasn't weighed down by the invisible ledger of debt. Lila wasn't born out of guilt. She was born out of love. That's the only legacy I care about.